kid so small that doctors said his body might stop growing before he turned 15. A family so broke they couldn't afford the medicine that would fix it. And a club on the other side of the ocean that looked at this 5'0" boy from Rosario, Argentina, and said, "We'll pay for it. Bring him to us." That decision created the richest underdog story in the history of sport. Today, that same boy owns a private jet, a fleet of supercars worth millions, mansions on 2 continents, and a fortune that's closing in on $1 billion. But here's what almost nobody talks about: the part of the story that happened before the money. Because that part is the real reason Lionel Messi is worth studying, whether you care about football or not. Stay with me until the end, because the last lesson in this video is the one that actually changes how you think about building wealth from nothing. This is Luxury Life Wealth Vault. Let's get into it. Rosario, Argentina, a working-class city a few hours from Buenos Aires, known more for producing steel and grain than global superstars. Lionel Andres Messi was born here in 1987, the youngest of 4 kids in a family that worked hard and had little to spare. His father worked in a steel factory. His mother cleaned houses part-time. Football wasn't a luxury in that house. It was the cheapest entertainment they had, and it was everywhere. Messi was kicking a ball before he could properly talk. By the time he was 5, he was already playing for local clubs. And by 8, coaches were whispering that this kid was different. Not bigger, not stronger, different. The kind of different you can't coach into someone. Then came the diagnosis that almost ended the dream before it began. Around age 10, doctors found that Messi had a growth hormone deficiency. Without treatment, his body simply wouldn't develop. Treatment existed, but it cost roughly $1,000 a month, and his family's local club in Argentina backed out of covering it. River Plate showed interest but couldn't commit to the cost either. Picture that for a second. A generational talent sitting in a doctor's office in Argentina, and the only thing standing between him and a future career was money his family didn't have. This is the part of the story that gets skipped in highlight reels, but it's the most important part, because greatness almost never looks inevitable while it's happening. It looks fragile. It looks like it could end on a random Tuesday over an invoice nobody could pay. In 2000, on a scouting trip, FC Barcelona's youth director saw a 13-year-old Messi play and reportedly decided on the spot that he had to be signed. The story has become legend in football circles. That the agreement to bring him in was first sketched out on a napkin because the club wanted the deal locked in before he left the room. Barcelona agreed to do what no Argentine club would: pay for his medical treatment and relocate his entire family to Spain. Think about the size of that bet. A European super club uprooting one working-class family from another continent on the belief that a sickly, undersized teenager would become worth the investment. That's not just talent scouting, that's conviction. And it's a reminder that the people who change your life are often the ones willing to invest in your potential before the world can see it. The move wasn't glamorous. Messi's father came with him. His mother and siblings stayed behind in Argentina for a while, splitting the family across an ocean. He joined Barcelona's famous academy, La Masia, where he was younger, smaller, and more homesick than almost anyone else in the building. He didn't speak the same Spanish accent as his teammates. He missed his cousins, his grandmother, the streets he grew up on. This is the era that built him. Not the trophies. This, the isolation. The grinding, lonely years where nobody is filming you. Nobody is paying you millions. And the only thing keeping you going is the stubborn belief that the sacrifice has to be worth something, eventually. Messi made his first team debut for Barcelona in 2004 at just 17 years old. Within a few years, he wasn't just playing. He was rewriting what people thought was possible on a football pitch. He became known for a dribbling style that looked almost effortless, like the ball was magnetized to his foot. Defenders built entire game plans around stopping him and still couldn't. By his mid-20s, he was collecting Ballon d'Or trophies, the award given to the best player on the planet, at a pace nobody had ever matched. Over his career, he's claimed the award a record 8 times. He broke goal-scoring records that had stood for decades. He won league titles, Champions League trophies, domestic cups, an entire wall of glass cases worth of silverware with Barcelona. And here's the part that matters for anyone watching this who wants to build something of their own. None of that came from one explosive moment. It came from relentless repetition, extra training sessions, a refusal to plateau even after he'd already become the best in the world. The people who reach the top rarely stay there by accident. They stay there because they treat the top as a starting point, not a finish line. For all his club success, there was one thing missing for over a decade, and the football world never let him forget it: a World Cup. Messi reached finals with Argentina and lost them. He carried a golden generation on his back and watched other countries lift the trophy instead. Pundits built entire careers out of the same lazy argument, that he couldn't be the greatest of all time without a World Cup star on his shirt. In 2016, after another painful loss, Messi briefly stepped away from the national team altogether. Worn down by the weight of carrying a country's expectations on a teenager's frame that had grown into a legend's body but still carried a kid's heart. This is the part of the story that should hit hardest for anyone chasing a big goal of their own. Messi had already won almost everything a player can win. He had the money. He had the records. He had nothing left to prove to anyone with eyes. And he still felt unfinished, because the goal he'd set for himself as a kid in Rosario wasn't be rich or be famous. It was be the best and bring it home. That kind of hunger doesn't come from a paycheck. It comes from somewhere much deeper, and it's exactly why he kept going instead of coasting on a fortune he'd already secured. Qatar, the World Cup final, Argentina versus France. Messi was 35 years old, an age when most elite footballers have already retired or faded into the background. This was almost certainly his last chance. What followed was one of the most chaotic, dramatic finals in the tournament's history. Argentina raced ahead. France clawed back. The game went to extra time, then a penalty shootout, the cruelest way for any match to end. When the final kick went in and Argentina were confirmed as champions, Messi didn't just win a trophy. He closed a 20-year loop that started with a small boy in Rosario who couldn't afford his own medicine. Every doubt, but he's never won the big one headline, every painful final loss. It all collapsed into a single moment of pure vindication. If you've ever worked towards something for years while people told you it wasn't going to happen, that's the feeling. That's why this moment hits so hard for millions of people who've never even played football. It wasn't really about the sport. It was about watching proof in real time that long-term obsession eventually gets paid in full. And here's the detail that makes it even heavier. This wasn't a 22-year-old with decades still ahead of him. Messi was already considered one of the greatest of all time before that tournament even started. He didn't need the trophy to secure his legacy in the history books. He wanted it anyway, because the goal he'd carried since childhood was never about being called the greatest. It was about actually finishing the job. That distinction matters more than people realize. Plenty of talented people stop chasing a dream the moment the label of successful gets attached to their name. Messi kept going until the specific outcome he wanted was sitting in his hands. Quick gut check before we move on. If you're getting value out of this breakdown, drop a like on the video. It genuinely helps this channel keep making deep dives like this one, and it costs you nothing. Now let's get into the part most of you came for. So Messi became a world champion. Football had nothing left to give him. But here's where this story becomes genuinely fascinating for anyone who follows wealth and luxury. Because what Messi did after lifting that trophy is just as impressive as anything he did on the pitch. He didn't fade out. He converted 2 decades of global fame into one of the smartest off-field business operations in modern sport. Let's break down exactly what that empire looks like today. As of 2026, Messi's net worth is widely estimated at somewhere between $850 million and $1.1 billion, depending on which financial outlet you ask and how they value his businesses in real estate. Career earnings across salaries, bonuses, and endorsements are estimated to have crossed $1.6 billion over his lifetime. In 2023, Messi made the move that shocked the football world. He joined Inter Miami in Major League Soccer instead of chasing a final mega contract in Saudi Arabia. On paper, it looked like a pay cut. In reality, it was one of the smartest business decisions of his career. His Inter Miami deal reportedly includes performance bonuses, a stake in the club itself, and revenue-sharing arrangements with the league's broadcast partners. Meaning Messi doesn't just get paid for playing, he profits from the explosion in popularity he personally created. MLS attendance, merchandise sales, and global viewership all spiked the moment he signed, and he's financially tied to that growth. He's since signed a contract extension, keeping him in Miami through the 2028 season, cementing his role as the highest-paid player in MLS history. Then there's Adidas. Messi signed with the brand back in 2006 and eventually secured what's described as a lifetime deal, meaning he'll keep earning from the partnership long after he's hung up his boots. It's one of the rare for-life sponsorship arrangements in sports, on par with deals normally reserved for basketball icons. This is the lesson hiding inside the numbers. Messi's wealth isn't just salary, it's ownership, equity, and long-term partnerships. He stopped trading time for money and started building assets that keep paying him, whether he's on the pitch or not. That single shift, from employee mindset to owner mindset, is the difference between being well-paid and being genuinely wealthy. Messi's property portfolio is reportedly valued at around $300 million, spread across some of the most desirable locations on Earth. In Barcelona, he owns a sprawling estate in the upscale area of Castelldefels, complete with a private pool, home gym, and enough land to feel like a private resort rather than a house. Back home in Argentina, he holds property tied to his roots in Rosario, a reminder that no matter how far the journey takes him, he's never fully let go of where it started. In Miami, since signing with Inter Miami, Messi has built out a property presence to match his new home base, fitting the lifestyle of South Florida's luxury waterfront scene. And then there's Ibiza, his favorite escape, where he's been spotted relaxing during off-seasons, soaking in the kind of low-key luxury that the island is famous for among Europe's elite. What's interesting is how deliberately spread out the portfolio is. It's not flashy for the sake of flash. It's strategic. A home near family in Argentina, a base in Spain where his career was built, a property in Miami where his current chapter is unfolding, and a private retreat in Ibiza, purely for rest. Every property serves an actual purpose in his life, which is a far smarter approach to luxury real estate than simply buying for status. Now let's talk about the part everyone actually clicks for: the cars. Messi's collection includes a Pagani Zonda Tricolore, one of the rarest hypercars ever built, with a price tag reported around $2 million. He also owns a Ferrari F4 3.0 Spider, a Dodge Charger SRT8, and a Maserati Gran Turismo, a mix that says a lot about his taste. It's not about collecting every flashy badge available. It's a blend of pure performance machines and understated luxury, the kind of garage built by someone who actually enjoys driving, not just being seen. And then there's the jet. Messi owns a Gulfstream 5, a long-range private jet reportedly worth around $15 million, capable of crossing oceans without a refueling stop. For a man whose career has required constant transatlantic travel between Argentina, Spain, and now the United States, it's less an indulgence and more a tool that buys back hundreds of hours of his life. That's actually the real lesson buried inside the luxury. At this level, wealth isn't about owning expensive things to impress strangers. It's about owning the right tools to protect your time, your family, and your energy. The jet isn't a flex. It's how a global icon manages to actually be present for his kids' birthdays, despite a schedule that spans continents. Messi's business interests now stretch far beyond playing contracts and sponsorships. Through his hospitality ventures, he's backed a group of luxury hotels across Europe under the Hotels brand, putting his name and capital behind a growing chain in popular tourist destinations in Spain. It's the same instinct that drove the Inter Miami deal. Instead of just collecting a paycheck from someone else's business, Messi is increasingly choosing to own pieces of the industries connected to his world: sports, hospitality, and lifestyle. He's also built out his own apparel and lifestyle branding over the years, leveraging 2 decades of global recognition into a name that sells on its own, separate from any single sponsor. This is the blueprint worth paying attention to. Athletes who only ever collect endorsement checks tend to see their income disappear the moment their playing career ends. Messi, Instead, spent his peak earning years quietly converting fame into ownership, equity in clubs, stakes in hotels, lifetime brand deals. By the time he retires from football completely, the empire will already be running without him needing to kick a single ball. Compare that to the cautionary stories you've probably heard about athletes from other sports who earned hundreds of millions during their careers and ended up broke within a few years of retirement. The common thread in almost every one of those stories isn't a lack of income. It's a lack of ownership. Money that only flows in while you're actively working stops the second you stop working. Money tied to equity, brands, and businesses keeps flowing long after you've left the building. Messi's team appears to have understood that distinction early, and it's arguably the single biggest difference between athletes who stay wealthy and athletes who don't. It would be incomplete to talk about Messi's fortune without mentioning where some of it goes. Through the Leo Messi Foundation, established in 2007, he's funded access to healthcare and education for children in vulnerable situations, both in Argentina and around the world. It's a deeply personal cause for him, a direct echo of his own childhood, when his family couldn't afford the medical treatment he needed and someone else stepped in to make it possible. There's something almost poetic about that. The boy whose future once depended on someone else's willingness to pay for his treatment grew up to fund medical care for thousands of children who'll never have to face that same fear. Real wealth, the kind worth admiring, isn't just measured in mansions and private jets. It's measured in what a person chooses to do with the power that money provides once survival is no longer the question. So what can you actually take from this story and apply to your own life, even if you'll never kick a ball professionally? Here are 5 principles hiding inside Messi's journey. 1. Your starting point doesn't decide your ceiling. A small, sick kid from a working-class neighborhood in Rosario became the wealthiest active footballer chasing billionaire status. The conditions you're born into are real, but they are not a life sentence. 2. Someone has to believe in you before the world does. Barcelona bet on Messi before he'd proven anything at that level. Find the people, mentors, or opportunities willing to invest in your potential, not just your resume. And when you find them, work like you intend to prove them right. 3. Stay hungry after you've already won. Messi had trophies, money, and global fame for years before he finally won the World Cup. He kept chasing the goal he set as a child instead of settling for the success he'd already achieved. Define your own finish line, not the one other people think should satisfy you. 4. Convert income into ownership. The biggest gap between being well paid and being truly wealthy is whether your money is still working when you're not. Messi's pivot toward equity, business stakes, and lifetime partnerships is the same principle available to anyone building a career today. Stop trading only time for money the moment you have the chance to build something that outlasts you. 5. Use wealth as a tool, not a trophy. The jet that saves him time. The foundation that funds the treatment he once couldn't afford. The properties chosen for purpose, not just prestige. The most impressive thing about Messi's fortune isn't the size of it. It's how intentionally it's used. From a steel-town kid who couldn't afford his own medicine, to a global champion with a fortune approaching $1 billion. Lionel Messi's story isn't really about football at all. It's proof that long-term obsession, when paired with the right people and the right decisions, can completely rewrite where you end up. If this kind of story, the journey behind the jets, the mansions, and the empires, is what you come here for, make sure you're subscribed to Luxury Life Wealth Vault, because we break down a new athlete, founder, or self-made icon every single week. Drop a comment and tell me, out of everything in this video, what surprised you the most about Messi's rise? I read every single one. And if you want to see exactly how Cristiano Ronaldo built his own billion-dollar empire, or how a kid from nothing turned into the highest-paid athlete on the planet, there's another video on this channel waiting for you right now. See you in the next one.